Right, here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Rethinking Legal Ops. Here we have forward thinking conversations about the many ways that the integration of law and tech are changing and transforming the world of law. I'm your host, Aishwarya. I'm the co founder and head of legal at SpeedLegal. Today we have a wonderful guest with us, Lorenzo Berto. He is an intellectual property and tech associate at Orsingher Ortu in Milan, in Italy. And he has an extensive background working with different types of technologies. And I'm so excited to have you here today, Lorenzo.
Thank you very much for having me. Hi everyone.
And this is our first episode this year, which we're doing live after quite a while because for some time we've done a mix of recorded episodes and some live. So it's wonderful to have everyone here today and to be talking to you sort of in real time. Very excited about that. And just to sort of kick things off, Lorenzo, I'd love to hear a little bit more about your professional journey, how you became a tech lawyer.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I met technology and law and the intersection between them at the early stages of my career at university, because I had two amazing teachers, and they always stressed the importance that technology would have had in the future, in the near future. And so I kept this in my mind, somewhere in my brain. And I moved forward in studying, doing my experience, and trying to be international. I've been to London for a semester, and then I became a lawyer, doing a very traditional path in Turin, which is my hometown. And then I thought, okay, now it's the right moment to get back to my original passion, and I enrolled in the LLM of Bocconi University in Milan, which is focused entirely on internet law. So you see how internet and digital technologies shape the legal environment from different point of view. So you have human rights, data protection, antitrust, intellectual property, and that was really cool for me. So I tried to grasp all I could, and then now I'm doing it for real as an associate in the law firm. We advise clients on contracts, mainly information technology contracts.
Great. That's such an interesting journey. And I also remember reading in your bio and really resonating with this. You talked about just the importance of an open mind, because the question on the different types of tech tools and how it's influencing the world of lawyers, that's that point of view of looking at it has not yet closed. I really resonated with that personally, and also just hearing about your professional journey, it makes so much sense as to why you wrote that, why you think that way. Speaking of an open mind, Lorenzo, what is the level of adoption of tech amongst legal practitioners in Italy at the moment?
I would say that at the moment the level of adaptation is pretty much low, because I did my homework and I looked for some data, and I found that in 2021, there were 63 legal tech companies, which might seem like a lot, but the overall turnover of them was 3.7 million euros, which is super small. So we might understand from that they are at the very early stages of their development. And in this respect, the United States of America are doing a different championship. But you might say, Italian law firms or Italian lawyer might still go to the market. If Italy is not ready yet, they could buy software from somewhere else. But in our field, geography matters a lot. The law is different from country to country. Language is different, and language is crucial to the law. So the fact that the Italian environment is not up to speed, I think it does have an impact on the level of adoption of the technology. And then I think we can also stress that there are few very big law firms in Italy and tons of small law firms or solo practitioners, and that does affect the level of adoption as well. I would like to stress this fact, because I think that solo practitioners or small law firms might get the most out of these tools. They could really do in few lawyers the works that big law firms do with the tons of associates or junior in their firm. So that's still an important point. I think in the next few years there will be some interesting development in this respect. Also because now everybody is talking about Legaltech or is trying to do experiment with it. So I think in the next few years things will be different.
Yeah, that is very exciting, and this reminds me of another conversation I had with another Italian attorney, Giuseppe, who was on, I think, 3 episodes ago, and he was sort of saying similar things. And I can, and just speaking with other sort of Italian investors and people in the business community there, it does seem like there is that sort of hunger for wanting to adopt more tech and sort of invest in more sort of tech in the field of law as well. So I think it's a very very interesting and exciting I think landscape, and particularly in I think in general in Europe as well. There's just so much opportunity just outside of just London. And here in the US outside of the Bay Area, because I think if you went like 5 years back, it was a very different story. People didn't take legal tech as seriously as they are now. So that's super exciting. And according to you, Lorenzo, what fields of law or what areas of practice can benefit the most from automation?
Well, I'd say that generally speaking, compliance is very suited for being automated, because unlike an advice which is tailor-made, you can really think of a software that does it, that automated certain passages of it. And for companies offering software, the idea or scaling is important. So they do have to reason on a product that can be supplied to many clients and without modifications. And so I'd say compliance, if we think just about Europe and just about the IT field, which is the one I do, there are tons of regulation of criteria which are standard across Europe. And for companies, complying with them in an automated way without going to the lawyer each time to draft a policy, that would really make the difference, I'd say. And the most interesting stuff of this part, in my mind, is that Legaltech might be a tool that enables party to access to justice to some extent, or better, access to legal advice. Because back to small companies, if you think about, I don't know, a young entrepreneur opening a gym, well, from day one, he or she has to deal with tons of personal data, health-related data, and they will never go to a lawyer to draft a privacy policy. They have just opened a gym. So if they could do so by clicking on a website and obtaining a sort of tailor-made privacy policy, because a super standard one, it's already out there, but a good one for them, that would change the access to legal advice issue in Italy and elsewhere as well.
I think that's such an important point that you bring up. I think accessibility in the legal profession is a problem, I think, in all parts of the world, because the prices for the fees of lawyers can be many times prohibitive, especially for small businesses, as you're saying, like for example a gym, or even for startups. I had that experience speaking with some of my wonderful colleagues here at Berkeley Skydeck. And it's an accelerator from UC Berkeley, and all like extremely early stage startups. And they have very valid sort of legal questions, but don't have a lot of access. Now, fortunately, Skydeck provides amazing resources. I mean, they have legal office hours with law firms and stuff, but without that type of support, I'm thinking how hard it would be, for like startups, like SaaS businesses, dealing with a lot of personal data, including transfers between different, countries as well, like between the EU and the US, and all the different concerns that come up with it. I think legal tech can be so powerful in increasing that, and finally making the legal profession more accessible. And that's something that really really drives me. And speaking of data privacy, Lorenzo, what are because when I speak to other to lawyers, about adoption of legal tech, and particularly in law firms, one of the things that come up is like, well, I mean, there's always the privacy concern. There's like client data that we have that, of course, to hold to like very strict confidentiality standards. So what are the main data privacy type of concerns that you've seen come up when it comes to adoption of legal tech?
Well, I'm not sure if privacy concerns are so different for lawyers than from other businesses, because when you deal with clients' data, you should ask ourselves always, am I allowed to share data? Have I gotten the relevant authorization? Well, one interesting point that might concern our profession is that if I informed my client that I might be using some information technology tools, and such tools are provided by different providers, and so there might be data privacy concerns. And on top of that, we do have ethical obligations. So when we share data, being personal or not, we do outsource, clients' own business, and that's a tricky point. And we do that without thinking about it. Almost in some cases, you receive a contract from a client, the contract is in English, you want to translate it, you go on DeepL and you just drop it there. And DeepL is machine learning, so I haven't checked their terms, but I'm pretty sure they will copy the contract and keep it on their servers. And that's relevant to the profession from data privacy, from ethical obligations. And such line of reasoning might lead to suggest that every lawyer, every law firm should have its own legal tech tools, which is pretty much not feasible, but it's something to think about, to strike a balance.
Yeah, totally. And I think also just like how you're mentioning, sometimes we just like upload them right on DeepL without really thinking about it. I think similar with a lot of sort of like the Google Drive, I think Google Drives are quite common here for lawyers to store all their contracts, all their data, everything on. It's not like the most, not like implying anything, but like it's not like security wise, it's not the best way to even store data. So I think there's that genuine apprehension, which is rooted in quite legitimate like concerns, and then there's also something, that aversion towards something new, like newer tools or like newer tech tools just look a little bit more scary than the type of stuff that I think attorneys are used to. But fortunately, that is slowly changing, and it's truly exciting. And sort of circling back to some of the conversation we were having earlier about automating compliance work and a lot of this sort of like manual, time-intensive type of work. Do you think that legal tech can also fuel more creativity amongst lawyers, so they don't have to do all this like manual compliance type of work, and they can do just more sort of like thinking and crafting all these creative solutions?
Yeah, definitely. It might free us from some repetitive stuff, and in order to focus on more relevant stuff, and also some added value you can bring to clients. So you do not do that stuff personally, you just check it, and then you think about what really differs from one situation to another. And also, you as a lawyer, you might think of different solutions. So maybe in yesterday's world, you were prone to solve a certain problem by thinking in legal terms, so with your words, with the law. And now you can also say, well, this one we do with code, or this one we do with code and law, because some part of the contract might be standardized, and you get your smart contract, and other obligations are written on paper. And that opens up a highway of creativity. You have new solutions, new arrows to shoot.
Absolutely. I love the sound of that. And just, as a follow-up to that, how much of this is also driven by demand from clients? Like, because I'm thinking surely like clients are also asking law firms to become more time efficient, right? Because no one, I think the billable hour revenue model is slowly becoming less and less attractive to, like potential clients or existing clients. So how much of that have you seen so far?
Yeah, I think that clients are asking more and more and asking to pay less and less, and the quality should be the same. So that's an issue. You, by being more efficient, you just compete on the market, because that's the client's request on average. And yeah, basically it's, I think that in Italy, the model based on billable hours is already at dawn, because few clients pay per hour. Most of them ask you, okay, let's reason from now on a certain amount, or maybe a certain package of hours, and then we'll see. There are a few clients who will just say, okay, let's agree on hourly based time, on a contingency free agreement or whatever, and then you bill me. Maybe in the United States that's not still the case, but it's a common trend, I think.
Wow. Yeah, no, I mean the flat fee models and like the package models are very much happening here as well. And I think that was one of the driving factors for like really large law firms. I think there's like White and Case, there's DLA Piper. They have their own even Oric. They have their own sort of innovation units within the firm, right? And when I was going to law school, I didn't imagine that you could have a CIO at a law firm, like a chief innovation officer, but now they exist. And a lot of this is driven by the fact that, you put it quite well, the clients are asking for more and more and want to pay less and less. And that has been such an important factor in driving efficiency and sort of inviting law firms, or even forcing them sometimes to go towards adopting more tech. And I think in IP practice in particular, that is the level of tech adoption in the US is higher than some of the other fields, because of sort of these doing like art searches, creative searches. There's so many amazing tools that just automate that process. I think White and Case has been working with one for the last couple of years, and I think every year they sort of pick up a new type of tech tool, like promote them and help the company. So that type of stuff is definitely happening here as well. And I think this is kind of like a segue into my next question, and very related to your point earlier, where you were talking about law firms having a sort of this competitive edge, over others when it comes to more efficiency. Can you explain that a little bit more? Is it more just in terms of time savings, which means like savings in terms of money, or is it even like the quality of work that firms with higher tech adoption can provide?
Yeah, it definitely can be also about quality, because maybe not we, but most people, they're scared about new stuff and technology. What if an algorithm makes an error? But junior and not so junior at law firms do tons of mistakes every day, especially when they have to do a due diligence, which lasts for months, and you work a lot, and you review the last contract late at night. Well, the algorithm doesn't get tired, and the level of quality of consistency is definitely higher. Then, as we were saying before, you can have human brains work on creative stuff, or where you need to have experience, knowledge of the client, human relationship, that kind of stuff. And that's an issue, in my opinion, because we tend to think that technology puts younger people ahead of the elderly, but it's not really the case here, because the stuff you do when you are a junior in law firms, that could be easily automated, and you just remain with the more seasoned lawyers, being them. So as a young lawyer, you should really know your stuff around the new tools that are out there, in order to present yourself as, well, I know some stuff, I'm a professional, and I also know how to be efficient.
Yeah, very important and valid point. I think, just apart from fearing, being replaced, I think it's so important, like with, in order to not be sort of replaced and overlooked, it's very important to, stay updated with all the new tools out there, especially as a young attorney that's just, graduating from law school. And there's at Berkeley Law, where I go, they have a class on coding for lawyers, and they teach you a little bit of like Python, maybe some very basic JavaScript, and it's fascinating to see that type of stuff being taught at a law school, because I would never have thought, when I was thinking of becoming a lawyer, that is the type of stuff that I would get to see. But more and more lawyers, that I currently, future lawyers and young lawyers who've just graduated, are learning the relevance, and it can really set you apart, from your peers. Like, you all read the law in a similar way, but then how are you sort of supplementing, those skills that you have, in order to still remain competitive and still remain, I guess, even relevant for the next, 10, 20 years, as we see more tech. So great segue again into my next question, Lorenzo. But do you think that, because of these reasons that we've been, sort of discussing here, it is also important for legal tech to naturally become part of law school curriculums?
Yeah, sure. And what you were saying about Berkeley program on legal tech on Python, I think that's super interesting, because I'm no natural at coding. Definitely, I tried to catch up, and I did some Python and Harvard X course for which was computer science for lawyers. Well, it's hard for me. What my goal was to try and understand, because also on my daily job, I talk to people coding, and I want to understand their language. I don't think that a lawyer necessarily should also be a perfect computer scientist, because you can't be super good at both. But understand a little bit, and then there will be coders doing the next big thing in the legal tech industry. But you do have to know some stuff about it, also for the creativity part we were discussing before. So you have that kind of thing in your mind. You can reason like a legal tech lawyer, so you can imagine and portray different solutions. And yes, and some Python doesn't harm during during law school.
It's very, very true. And this reminds me of another conversation I had on this podcast. I think this was like earlier last year. It was Kevin Keller. He's an engineer, by training, and then he went to law school and became a lawyer. And he talks about how just having that knowledge from a different discipline helps him be more innovative as a lawyer, and look at the perspective of his clients that maybe come from a tech background. And what you were saying about being able to talk to coders, being able to communicate with them, it's so important to be able to work with them in crafting all these, legal solutions, because someone recently told me, like, clients are no longer coming for just advice; they're coming for solutions. They want lawyers to be like these sort of like legal solutions architects. And there's jobs out there being advertised as like legal solutions architect or
Yeah.
a legal solutions engineer. And I think it's just so cool. And really, like, the landscape for law jobs out there is evolving and changing so much that even if some jobs, for junior attorneys are replaced, there's so many others that are created because of all these new frontiers that I think tech has opened up. And in your experience at Bocconi, Bocconi has a very I think I was speaking with a professor a while ago from Bocconi, and they were talking about these innovation workshops they also do at Bocconi. Did you get to participate in some of those, or just tell us about what that was like when you were a student there?
Yeah, we had few lectures on Legaltech, and those lectures were focused on what's been going on out there. So there was an introductory kind of course, and there was a lawyer there from Linklaters, I'd say, and they also told us that Linklaters has its own unit thinking about new solutions and coding or outsourcing the ideas they come up with. And but this year, so the following one, they have introduced in the LLM I've taken last year a course on Legaltech. So I think they developed on this idea, and now they have full course on that.
Nice. That's very cool. I wish there were some like pathways of making sort of partnerships between all these different law schools happen, because Berkeley's excited about this. I know Stanford's doing really cool work with their Codex group, and just in talking with someone from Oxford, they have an innovation institute that's associated with the law school there, Bocconi, and on this podcast I had another person from Portugal. And they were telling me about their university has a similar program. It would be so cool if we could, I'm sort of putting this out in the universe now, if anyone's listening, make this happen. But if we could have sort of like a large consortium of universities that sort of invite lawyers from everywhere to do like workshops, like 1 week, you just create like a legal tech tool, based on the pain points and stuff you've seen in your work. That would just be so amazing. So if anyone that can take this up and make this happen, please do. I would love to see that. And just sort of in concluding remarks, this has been such a wonderful conversation, and I'm curious to hear what type of tech tools are you personally most excited about?
Well, I did have a brief experience with Luminance, and this was in 2018, so a few years ago. And for me, it was a game changer, because I was in a more traditional law firm, I would say, at that point, and they didn't have any tools at that time. So we were thinking about it, and we did have an experience with the part taking care of due diligence and M&A. We had some demos, whatever, but then we didn't go forward because we worked a lot in Italian, and that's, I think, a super interesting part. There's so much to do for every country, because this time the English patent standard won't work. You can start from that, but then if you work with Italian contracts, Italian clients, at some point you have to standardize within your country, and that goes for anyone else. So that's super interesting, and it was interesting because we were really thinking about doing the work that super big law firms do with half the lawyers. So that's the right mindset, I would say, but the tool was not ready yet. Maybe we weren't either, but that's the way.
Yeah, totally. And I think Luminance, just their initial algorithm in itself it was a game changer. I think tools like Luminance, Seal, these sort of like early legal tech companies, Ironclad, and I think now that even more companies have come up, and there's, you know, more possibilities, especially with ChatGPT. There, I said it, has to be said in every conversation now. But like with generative AI like this, I think it's there's just so many more exciting tools out there, and I think Luminance and Ironclad, they're also looking at partnerships with, I think, OpenAI, like Google, to, you know, also like, you know, figure out how to further improve the algorithms, because now it's not just it's no longer just limited to, you know, some review of documents or storage of documents. Now it's, you know, review, drafting, understanding, all of those things, and it's a very, very exciting landscape. So it's
ChatGPT is entered the advice field, you know, big time.
Okay.
So.
Oh yeah. I'm, you know, it's threatening lawyers, you know, like young lawyers with their jobs, threatening like young tech people, but at the same time, it's creating so many more opportunities as well. So if you know, have you played around with ChatGPT and
Yeah,
your work?
I'm trying these days to ask ChatGPT the questions that clients ask to myself, and you know, let's see how it goes. And
how good is it?
Well, it is good, but it depends a lot on how you draft the question. So the more specific you are, the more specific the answer is. And that then, because of how it has been shaped and coded, it doesn't take very much responsibility, and clients do want that. At some point, you tell them, go ahead, stop. And that ChatGPT doesn't do that. You know, it says you might consult a lawyer, you might think about asking another advice to a licensed professional, and that doesn't work.
Yeah. I think like I think that's like sort of that's an important point, and I think the purpose of all these AI tools is really not to entirely, like, you know, replace lawyers, but to sort of, I think like the biggest value is probably to just like help people ask better, more specific questions, I guess, to their lawyers, and be like, hey, like, read this, this is kind of where I'm at, like, you know, so like maybe instead of spending 2 hours with their lawyers, like, you know, going over the same stuff, they can now just spend one. And that is, I think, the biggest USP for a lot of legal tech tools to me. And yeah, I'm just excited to see where it goes and where it takes us as well. You know, as we see the digital transformation of law in real time, it's a very exciting time to be, you know, a lawyer, to graduating from law school. And I want to thank you, Lorenzo, for you know, talking with us today. It was a very very fun conversation, and you know, just like hearing you talk about the possibilities in Italy, and the adoption of legal tech in your work. It gives me a lot of hope and excitement for the near future, as we see more law firms and lawyers sort of welcoming legal tech and opening up more opportunities for lawyers, for businesses, creating value for everyone.
Thank you very much. It has been my pleasure. Thank you.
And a big thank you to all our listeners and viewers as well. Thank you so much for your interest in legal tech and in rethinking legal ops. We're here every Thursday with wonderful speakers like Lorenzo. So tune in next week as well. We'll be here, and let's keep the conversation about the digital transformation of law going.